just hit the button.
I am good.
Gonna just continue to talk about how Rob Stone is not a human being.
He's not.
He's of another planet.
We deemed him the manimal.
The manimal.
Part man, part animal. The manimal.
That's appropriate.
Yes.
Good job with that.
All right. So the clock has struck 9. It must be Monday. Hope everyone is all set for our 10-minute rant on BlackBox and how awesome they are, because Patrick requested it.
He did. He said, tell us about each model cage by cage.
Let's start smallest to biggest and go up from there. It is Monday. This is Snakes and Stogies episode 181, which is brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com.
BlackBoxCages.com.
Use code THN at checkout. Save yourself a little bit of money. Get a rack, get a cage. Keep it brief. We dare not upset people. Facebook, Instagram, give them a follow. There's a giveaway still going on that is ending on the 30th. Go hop on it. Check it out. FullViewsApparel.com. Also use the code THN at checkout. Save 15%. That is just for THN listeners and viewers like you. Got some orders going out tomorrow.
Dude, the Pariahs is sick.
What's
Love
Billy
the Pariahs
about?
logo. What, Jenkins?
Billy Jenkins?
181, bro.
I don't get it. Oh,
Episode
okay. I thought it was like a
on,
zip code or something.
Dude, Billy Jenkins is our hype man.
Yeah. Still have to add hoodies. Haven't have not gotten that far. So I got a Pariah hoodie because this was the tester for this particular model to see how well it would print and hold up in the wash, and it is held up perfectly. So we will continue on that route. If there's a particular design that you guys want to see on a hoodie, because I'm kind of having a hard time deciding. I am limited on colors as far as hoodie options, so got to keep that in mind.
Well, that Pariah's color is spot on, bro.
Yeah, this one actually is. It's a little lighter than what I was preferring. It should have been a little greener, so I gotta tweak the file a little bit. But
yeah, but I like that mint color, that mint green. It's good.
It's more like a pistachio if we're gonna get
pistachio. Hands down.
But I mean, just gotta figure out what designs we want to do. Probably the obsolete one is likely gonna be a hoodie. The issue with these is I'm sort of limited on space, especially on the front, because of this pocket. So the really like tall designs likely will not be on the hoodies. So Rhino Rad hoodie, yes, absolutely. That's a given. The Stop It Hoser on a hoodie thing, that's
it's dangerous.
We'll see. I don't know. I don't think it's dangerous because, again, like, it's not talking about a particular person. Hoser is Canadian slang, so
it is. It very much so. Wisconsinite.
Yeah, there you go.
Hosers. Where's Jake?
Right.
Where's Jake? What I think you could do is, just as a tester, I want to call them saddles. The saddle logos. You know, Alterna, Okati, Subocularis. Put that on the breast of the hoodie, because it's narrow enough that it won't affect the pocket.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still a solid 10 inches of workable space. It's just with like the Crotalus Bleed American design, like that's a really long one, so that one won't work as well.
Yeah, the Pituophis is really long.
Yeah. So stuff more. We want stuff that's a little more squared off. But I can still put them on the back. But the issue is, if it's a hoodie, the hood's going to cover up most of that. Yeah.
Jason Keller wants to know when the Malpalon design is coming out. I'm with him, man.
Zach Loughman wants to know when the false water cobra design is coming out.
Yes.
Zach Loughman is responsible for getting you the picture.
I've actually had I've had a handful of people ask about a falsy design, and it's
I got you, man.
At the top of the list, just hasn't happened yet. So
that's partly my fault.
I'm trying to diversify and do more invert and non-snake related stuff. like diversify.
Yeah.
But it's really hard when like there's so many cool species I want to do stuff for. So,
Yeah.
but falsies are definitely at the top of the list. That might be a weekend project coming up here soon.
Cool.
So,
I've got pics.
yeah.
Like
I used Jake's
300
for the obsolete shirt. Jake had a really good yellow rat picture, and that was the big one at the bottom of that.
Mm-hmm.
Looks really
I think for the Malpalon, you should do a silhouette of the Mediterranean, like just the sea, like no landmass. Then do like the snake design in the middle, and then same how Doc has like the university logo. Just do Malpalon like established, whenever.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, like who was it? Gunther or Cope or whoever described it.
Mm-hmm.
Do Malpalon across the top, like established, 1842 or whatever. I think that'd be cool.
That would be pretty nerdy and wonderful.
Very nerdy. Love it.
Mm-hmm. We're embracing the nerdiness with all the Fulvius stuff.
Yes.
So.
And speaking of nerds, the best nerds in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh yeah.
They're here in the chat right now. The Gendra, the Puget Sound Pythons.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Instagram, give them a follow, and then go on Morph Market and give them a follow there as well. If assuming they haven't hidden the follow button somewhere where you cannot find it anymore.
Whoa.
It's Morph Market. It's just getting weird. It's just getting odd. Like I want to look at pricing for a plan. If I end up having to post some snakes and like just hunting down the pricing area to figure out how much it is month to month for the different plans was way harder than it should have been. It's like that should be at the header of that website, but it's neither here nor there.
Yeah. They want committed people, man. They don't want just anybody.
Apparently. Find that after I throw the ring in the volcano. Oreocryptophis porphyraceus. So I was actually working on a conspic design.
Let us sing this.
But I have not come back to that. That was something I was working on a couple weeks ago. So
rock and roll. And are you partaking in a delicious caffeinated beverage this evening?
Of course.
Of course.
Good old White Monster.
Not the sponsor I was thinking of.
Oh. I was going to say, I am. But...
No. I thought you'd be having that Panera Bread lemonade that Casey was talking about, but no. Yeah,
Sign
right.
me up.
Sign me up for that Panera
390 milligrams of caffeine.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Days.
If you're watching this and it's your morning, or you're just a sick, sadistic freak who loves to watch us caffeinated, go check out Cold-Blooded Caffeine.
Use the link in the description. We get a little something for that, but
we're very close to announcing our coffee-related surprise. I mean, let's be real. It's coffee.
Coffee.
You know it's going to be coffee. We're not talking about it yet. We're not going to tell you the blend. We're not going to tell you the flavor, the aromas, the notes, if you will. We're not even going to tell you what the bag looks like. But stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned, because you'll want to buy a bag. You'll want to squeeze that bag and get that fragrance to flow out into your nostrils, almost as if you had your very own Jacobson's organ. Stand by.
You went there.
I did.
I want to have Trey send me just an empty bag for me I can just put some like bubble wrap in it or something to have here with, in the little knick-knack area.
Well, you can't have it. You can just seal up the bag when you're done eating the coffee and drinking the coffee.
At this point, that's probably what I might as well start doing.
You're shoveling grinds.
Just eating them or snorting them directly.
Yeah, right. Oh God.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're joined tonight by a very special guest. Smitty, would you like to introduce our very special guest? Even though people probably already know his
man
voice.
who needs no introduction.
I know.
Crawdaddy
the voice
himself.
alone, the Crawdaddy.
Mm-hmm. Hi, y'all.
Silver fox beard he's got going on.
It's weird. It turned silver in the past year. I don't know what I think about that, but it is what it is.
I've got white hairs creeping in here and there. Katie likes to point them out to me all the time. She's like, "There's another gray one." I'm like, "Yeah, it's because of you."
You can use it as an excuse to your employers that it's a stress-related thing.
It probably is a stress-related thing.
Look at what you're doing.
I didn't have this before they made me a department chair.
I thought they
Because
were going to say,
the problems that I had were my problems, but now that I'm department head, everybody's problems are my problems.
Very true. I thought you were going to say it was before you started writing books.
The book was my way of dealing with becoming the department head.
Touche.
I got to run away to my nerdy little island of xenodontine snakes, and I don't think there's a more nerdy island than the island of xenodontine snakes.
There is. Oh yes, there.
Yes.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah.
How's that been going? Is Russ sold out yet?
We are very close. We would be sold out, except for both Russ and I can't count. and we were kind of convinced that we were out of the hardbacks. And then we realized, oh crap, there's like another case and maybe another case. So the sign and numbers are done. Like the first 100.
Yeah.
Now granted, we're still working on getting all of them out. Yeah. See, Phil got one. But there are still hardbacks left, and we have probably 150 to 200 softbacks left. He went
Awesome.
heavy on the softbacks and we didn't order that many hardbacks, but a lot of people are they'll buy the hardback and then they do what I do, which is you've got to have two copies because you've got to have the one that you utterly demolish and then the one you keep on your bookshelf.
Yes.
So I'm learning. There's quite a few. There's definitely a subculture of herpetoculture that collects books the way we collect snakes. Not that you guys don't collect books. I mean, I have a ton of books.
Yes.
I don't collect books as much as Phil does, but it's mostly because I just don't have anywhere to put them. Like, I have them piling up in my closet right now. There's some that I bought years ago that I haven't even cracked open and read yet. But.
No, I have 3 or 4 offices, so I got plenty of places to shove books, and there are books in all of them. So.
Well, and then you kind of get like me where you try to get the hard copy for the collection and then the soft copy for you to demolish, right? Read in bed, bring in the field, what have you. But certain books you just can't do that with. So like it took me a solid 5 years to find Edition Chimera's Reptiles in the Land of Israel. And I paid like $300 for it, which I had to do it. And I find myself reading it at the kitchen table because I can lay it flat because I really don't have a work desk, and I'm reading at the kitchen table and I'm turning the pages like
with
Filbert.
tweezers.
Well, no, like Filbert in Rocco's Modern Life. You turn the page, you wash your hands. You turn the page, you wash your hands, and that's what I did with Dr. Loughman's book.
There you go.
Try to keep it creaseless.
No, I have a lot of books. In fact, I have a bunch on my desk right now. I'm trying to get first or second printings of all of Caulfield's books, and this is one. Now, granted, it's kind of everything's backwards here, so this is kind of old. But this is a 1937 printing.
Wow,
of snakes and their ways.
Awesome.
So I just got this one last week. There's a guy, I'm sure many people know him. He shows up on Facebook a lot, Mike Crick. I met him at the IHS meeting this past year. He lives in Flipping, West Virginia, which is hella dangerous. And now he is literally my dealer. Chris Montross used to be my dealer, but I got all the snakes that I wanted from him. And because I literally wiped out his Getchula collection. Like, he got out of Kings because Alabama has the rule that's about to go into effect. I don't even think he offered them to anybody but me because he knew it was pretty much guaranteed sale. So
nice.
But then after I got those, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy some books. And then Mike Crick absolutely knows the books I want, and he's dangerous. I can be like, hey, I want this obscure Smithsonian contributions to zoology, and he's like, yeah, I got 4 copies in my basement, hold on, which price range would you like? I'm like, holy hell.
Nice.
So yeah, no, so the book collection has grown exponentially over the past 3 years, I would say.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I love
the books are actually driving my wife more crazy than the snakes, because the snakes are contained, but books are books. so they just can go on any horizontal surface. So like
That's great.
certain collections are in the dining room, certain collections are in the living room. Every bookcase we had, she used to have a bunch of ornamental things, and I feel kind of bad because the books have taken over, like the candles.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, but you can't learn anything from a candle.
You can't. And I got to write this hognose snake book, and I know that it's going to be underneath a microscope. So I'm just reading everything and anything to try to figure out what the hell the voice of that one's going to be. So, anywho.
Nice. You should write by candlelight.
I haven't written by candlelight. I have written with no electricity.
Ink
the
and
laptop
quill
was the only thing generating light. So
Fair enough.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah. But no, I've been extremely humbled. Tinley was a little bit overwhelming. Russ's table was literally right, like you walk through the main door and bam, right into Russ's table. And Clint Bartley, who I do shameless plug, CBriC Radio with.
Yes.
He came over like 3 times and was like, "You look like an angry gorilla. Smile." Because I was just completely overwhelmed with the sea of humanity just smashing me in the face. And so I learned that it's a good thing I'm a professor because my customer service needs a little bit of work. And it wasn't that I was ungrateful. I loved I was horribly humbled, but I was just kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
There's people all the time, which was pretty intriguing for me.
When you have arguably the current best podcast in herpetoculture, it's difficult to not have fans. Just saying.
I don't know if we can go that far.
I think we can.
We both do.
Okay.
I will speak for Smitty and say that CBriC Radio is probably the coolest, most desired listening of herpetoculture podcasts on the market right now.
I get very excited every time Spotify notifies me that there's a new episode.
Thanks. Clint and I are doing our best. It's funny because we were talking to Tinley and we're like, do we change the recipe or do we keep the recipe exactly the way it is?
Exactly the way it is.
Because it's working, and I don't even know what the hell the recipe is. Just like you guys, I'm sure. You just kind of get on there and just let her rip and hope for the best kind of thing. But we haven't had any moments yet where we have to backpedal a little bit. The only moment we've had was we had a guest on our house snake episode, and I absolutely love the fact that she did this, where she talked about how she tested herself for worms. And I was like, "Yeah, you're doing fecals on yourself. You can be my friend."
Yes, yes.
But other than that, we've been very fortunate. But we've got some guests lined up. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But one of the things that Matt and I were very big on before Matt had to go off to greener pastures is that we really wanted to. It's almost like an oral history. I never thought I'd be doing that. I feel like I'm doing like herpetocultural anthropology. Like I just want to get, like we had Kathy Love on talking about starting up the corn snakes, and I didn't quite realize. I realized that Kathy Love was kind of the godmother of all corn snake morphs with Bill. I didn't realize that Bill and Kathy were some of the first people to do racks and how they came up with the way to heat them with the when I get those little nuggets, I feel like, man, this is gold. But I want to get some of the kind of the classic names in colubrid herpetoculture on. Yeah. But I've just been so damn busy this fall that Clint as well. I mean, he's had his shop for a year and a month. Year and 2 months. So he's got plenty of free time. So anyway, but our goal is over the winter to basically get a couple people on, and their names that people will recognize. But and then also bring on new younger folks as well. Yeah. But try to kind of dance that dance between the generations. I think that's something we've done. Absolutely. Pretty good.
So, you guys have done a great job of having veterans, up and coming rookies that are up and coming, people that have been hitting it hard for a few years and killing it,
Yeah.
Doing a great thing. I'm halfway through Terry Burwell's. I gotta finish that.
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I finished
That one was
Terry's.
great.
Terry's a really good dude.
Yep.
Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm. And then that's a great example because initially I thought we were going to be talking about like Boiga, Dendrophila, Boiga Sienna, and then it was going to be initially it was going to be like half Boiga, half Baroni, and then he started going on about Cynodon, and I was like, when the hell is anybody going to record anything about Cynodon? So we just let it, keep going. So now that exists, which is pretty cool.
Hell yeah, man.
Hell you can't plan. You just have to let it, germinate and go where it's going to go, and that's what Clint and I have done. But we also try to make sure it has some kind of repeatable structure, because that's obviously that recipe is working because it's reciprocating with people, or people are getting it, or I don't know. But hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's what we're gonna do.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah. But thanks for the props.
Terry's a fellow South Carolinian.
True
so
that.
He knows what's up.
He got your Boiga, right?
He got my pair of greens. Because I got out of Boiga when South Carolina had a
getting weird
restriction on the table, and I did it a little prematurely, but I got a pair of rhinos for those, and those rhinos are doing great, and those Cyania are doing great for him. So I have that Marco Polo app. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, where like you send each other short videos, and I literally have that app just so, because that's how me and Terry pretty much talk at this point. Is it's almost like Snapchat.
Okay.
But like, we were just talking the other day because, I listened to that episode and talking about the egg thickness on Boiga and, how thick the eggshells are on those Janseni. And like, I just talking to him about what we had talked about with maybe it's a pH in the soil or the acidity of the water, that deteriorates that shell over the course of time. That makes it easier for these babies to hatch. Like, basically told him that whole synopsis of what we were, theorizing, because I couldn't put that all in text. It would have taken me like 20 minutes and 4 pages of typing. So
sure.
Marco Polo action, and
that's cool. I gotta check that out.
He's it was a great episode. Again, Terry's awesome. I love everything he does. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, no, I need another Boiga person, and I thought Terry would work.
Hell yeah,
great.
I enjoyed the episode with Dan too, though, with Sheehan. Yeah.
Oh, Dan's been to West Liberty at least 3 times.
Really?
Oh, wow.
That guy's a machine, dude. He's in Philly, and he'll be like, "Yeah, there's a show in Chicago. I think I'm leaving now." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I think I can be there by like 7 a.m." And he drives all night, shows up at our door.
Wow.
But and because he's willing to do that, he's also kind of dangerous for me because he'll go to kind of the New England shows that I don't ever get to go to. And then since he doesn't mind driving to West Liberty, he'll basically message me, "Hey, you want these kings? You want this? You want that?" And it's like I'm at the show. And Dan and I have very similar taste. We hung out a lot at Tinley. So
that's good, man.
No, I love Sheehan. And Stacy, his girlfriend, needs to get some props as well because her lizard collection is insane.
They've got some cool
the
stuff
she has and she's producing, like insane. Her skink diversity could freaking teach my herpetoculture class when we do skinkity. Like it's nuts. I'm extremely impressed with everything she's doing as well. It seems like everything she gets, she produces. Like she's
got that magic touch.
She's got that magic touch, man.
That's awesome.
So
very cool.
Yep.
Was there anything new on your end, Philip? Briefly.
No, nothing to write home about, as they say. I started drawing designs to decorate the inside of my BlackBox cages, and I started to play around with some different types of foam because I just don't know. Like, yes, I could go buy the expanding foam black pond spray and just squirt it on the inside, but I'm so afraid of messing up and then ruining my beautiful cage that I kind of want to, like, I wish I could almost put something down like wax paper or something and do it and then like peel it away if I had to?
I could speak to that.
Yes, please do.
So, number one, I can plug black box gauges because we had another company whose initials were A and P, and then I was tired of waiting until my child could get to high school to get the gauges.
Yes.
So then we segued over to BlackBox, and we had them within. When we ordered a lot, like university money, I think we ordered 20.
Wow.
And we got all 20 in a month, which
was
insane.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But then we do the same thing. In my herpetoculture class, people have to build backgrounds. And so about every 3 years, every enclosure gets a brand new background.
Oh,
so
wow.
what we have started to do is we go to Lowe's and we buy the cheapest, thinnest plywood we can buy. We scratch the hell out of it so that the spray foam can attach to it. And we essentially build an insert. So
okay.
It basically is a perfect mock-up of the inside of the enclosure. And then they can do whatever the hell they want, and they're not actually adding anything to the PVC.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Are they doing just the back, or are you guys doing the sides too?
We do everything. Back, sides, bottom. We do a lot. One of the things I'm really into right now are vertical features. So vertical hides, like making trees where they basically kind of go up in the corner of the enclosure, and then a lateral branch comes out that is half coming down from the ceiling, but half on the ceiling. So it kind of mirrors the ceiling. But we've had a fair amount of success with the inserts. The only thing you have to do if you do that with spray foam is freaking spray foam and wood. It gets along and it doesn't. So you just have to rough up the wood to give it, attachment points. But that works great.
Excellent. I'll definitely try that.
Yeah, that was always the struggle for me with Dart Frog setups and the spray foam was like never figuring out the right amount to where it's going to expand to the exact amount that I need it to. And I always overdid it. And so it's like I'd spray it and be like, that doesn't look like a whole lot. Add some more. And then I'd come in the morning and like half the tank is filled with foam. And I'm like, well, what the hell? Having to cut away almost all of it, so I end up wasting a bunch of foam. But
yeah, I think one of my other problems is I've been doing these realistic photo backgrounds from petbackdrops.com. So like picking the perfect picture that myself or a friend took, because that's going to be my MO. I'm not going to do a cage up unless the background has a photo that I took or a friend took, right?
That's cool.
And Kyle Vargas was kind enough to give me some locality-specific mountain shots for some of the Marulus I've got, and Clobberai too. And it's trying to figure out for lack of a better synonym, the foam around the landscape to like make the two blend. And I'm just trying to figure that out. And I decided I have an adult suboc that I want to get her out of tub, so to speak. And I can't pick because we have so many. Smitty and I took so many rock pictures when we were in West Texas, and it's like, which rock picture do I really pick? And it's a River Road locality, so like I have the scenic overview of River Road with like the Rio Grande cool. But the problem is it's such a big wide shot, and the cage is basically a cube. So it's like, do I do more rock? Do I do more valley? What do I do? But first world problems. But
first world problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a lot of pictures of exposed rock where some of the DNR biologists in West Virginia and I get along really well. So I asked them, can you just tell me a general area where timbers come down to the road so I can just get some images? I don't even want to find a snake. Yeah. I just want pictures of the rock ledges to share with my students. And I coming home from a trip to the Eastern Panhandle, West Virginia, and I took back roads and just drove to the waypoints. And then here I am taking pictures of what appears to be nothing. And a couple of the yeehaws stopped and were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they're like, "What are you taking pictures of?" And I was like, "Rocks." Nice. Like, okay. Apparently that's what you got to say. Scare redneck away.
Yeah.
So, usually they engage in conversation, but they were just kind of like, yeah, okay. And then bounced.
Not messing with that guy.
Fine. Yeah. Right. Well, I always take pictures of habitat. Right. And we take pictures of like rock falls and tullus and what do you call it, rock cuts and stuff. But afterward, when I go home and I'm sorting through photos, I always zoom in to all the photos, hoping that I will see some creature that magically poked its head out right when I have yet to find an animal in my shots like that. But one day I will. One day I'll just be driving through El Paso and I'll be like, that's a pretty looking rock. And there'll be just an Alterna sitting there.
Nice. I did that with the Prairie in Minnesota and in Colorado for just inspiration for hognose vivs.
Yeah.
And the Colorado pictures, I was just taking them. I wasn't like really framing it or anything.
You weren't focusing.
Like, okay, bam, 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 as I was herping. And some of them are like very picturesque.
Nice.
They could make like a nice mural in here.
That's good.
Yeah. But I'm sure that in those though, there's like a prairie rattlesnake for sure. Cause they were, they were very impressive. The thing that, I've collected Viridis, not collected, but observed Viridis now in Kansas and Arizona. I collected near Rodeo where the Viridis and Mojaves come together and form the hybrids, which is really cool.
Excellent.
And then I got them in Kansas.
Thank you, Lisa.
Kansas, Colorado, and Arizona, New Mexico. And in Colorado, I was out with Rob Stone, and he basically was like, hey, they're kind of like landmines. Be careful. They really are like landmines. Like the pastures don't move. And you're walking through that prairie where it's like shin-high vegetation, and then you go to step, and it is a land, like it looks like a landmine. It's a disc. Sitting there.
Aren't prairies aren't those considerably more high strung than a lot of other species though, or is that just subspecies?
Yeah. When we were out there looking for the hognose, my one of the professors here, Kinsey, she's my former student. So I've known her forever. And we were walking along the railroad track, and we were walking up over the railroad track, and she stepped on the other side of the railroad track. And the light was coming from the sun was coming from the west. So if you picture the way a shadow would fall, there was about an 18-inch space of black darkness. And the frickin' prairie had come up out of the sagebrush and was smashed up against the side of the railroad track because that was the only area where it was shady and cool.
Wow.
And Guthrie stepped over it, and like she stepped, and we heard bzzz, and it struck. Like there was no.
Oh wow!
It was like buzzing, striking, same time, and it actually she didn't get bit, thank God. But I don't know if you've ever had this happen where your adrenaline like spikes.
Oh yeah.
So you go like up, and then you have the crash, and you get nauseous, and you can't like stand up, and that totally happened to her. She just had to like chill out on the side of the railroad track. But yeah, that was our introduction to prairies.
Nice.
And then I think that I hiked up the other ones, and all of them were like, I saw them first, and then we get close, and then buzz strike. I've never seen that in a rattlesnake. Like
you get a warning, but it's about a half a second.
Yeah, no, they're just like cracked out meth heads. Like, just like timbers are very polite. They'll buzz and buzz and buzz and buzz. And they give you a fair warning, but these things were just insane. Which of course meant that I love them. They're one of my favorite rattlesnakes I've ever interacted with because of that.
Yeah.
So
bouncing betties, man. Bouncing betties. Well, our good friend Lisa had a in-depth question for you. I was going to read it, but I was like, you know what? Let me just throw it up on the screen, and I'll let Doc read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So Helicops Angulatus is an aquatic snake. Oh my God, it's the end of the day and my brain is not working. In Southeast Asia, Homolopsidae, that's it. And they are an ecological equivalent to the Homolopsids. So the anatomy of a Helicops is very similar to Anhydrus, or it used to be Anhydrus plumbea, but now it's a different genus. But those kind of rice paddy snakes, if you will. But with with helicops, they do crazy things. They can be viviparous, they can be egg layers, and they're the same species, which reproductively is nuts. And the reason why they do that is when they live in an environment where it's ecologically stable, I believe it goes, when they're ecologically stable, they're egg layers because they can get out and drop the eggs. And when they're in an environment that's not ecologically stable, that's when they have to retain the young and then go out about. And then, they basically keep the young internally so that they can ultimately go to where the water and the resources are. And when they give birth, the babies are going to be where the resources are.
Excellent.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
Now, is this a case of locality specific reproduction, or is this anywhere? So the animals at site A may lay eggs, but the animals at site B are going to give live birth, but they never cross paths.
I can't say that they'll never cross paths.
Okay.
But it's basically a population variation kind of thing.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, of course, there's some evidence with Parthenogenesis that they can just potentially produce eggs without mating. With xenodontines, that appears to happen more than we think.
Okay.
I've gotten one clutch of Boiruna, the false musaranas, and I am 99.9% certain it was a Partho clutch.
Really?
Because I told a student to put the male with the female, and then he didn't because he was afraid that the female was going to eat the male, and he didn't want to be responsible for its death.
Valid.
And I think that was a classic. I'm away at a conference, and I'm like, "Hey, put that male together," and he's like, "Oh hell no, these are Loughman's precious babies." But then we got eggs, and then I found that out after the fact. So.
Yeah,
and then the eggs crashed on us, which is also kind of indicative of a Partho clutch because they're not the most robust normally.
Yeah.
But Helicops is one that it shows up every now and then. The only place that reliably has them is, of course, underground when they get a Suriname import or something. And that's the one xenodontine that almost got its own chapter, but I was burnt to a crisp. And was and I was also kind of holy hell, this needs to end, because I'm just going to keep going and going and going and going. So
that's super cool.
They're cool. Dr. Ford, Neil Ford. He's actually does a lot of herpetoculture work. He's at UT Tyler. He recently retired, but he did a lot of reproductive biology. He produced the first granite checkered garter snakes.
Oh, wow.
So, but he's a professor like me. But he did a fun study where he did what I need to start doing, where he was basically like, you know what? I need to go to South America because I can. And so he basically just went down and did a real quick study of helicops where he bought a bunch of minnow traps, shipped them down ahead of him, and then put them in the ditches around, I think it was a sugarcane field, and was catching 50 to 70 a night.
Wow.
The density of these things can be extremely high. So it's kind of shocking that that more of them aren't imported. And I've heard that when you get them in human care, they do really well. They're basically, you just treat them like an extremely aquatic Neurodia. So I've decided the next time I see them, I'm probably pulling the trigger because I like aquatic snakes, and somehow I haven't owned those yet. So
hell yeah. I find that super fascinating with the switching between eggs and live birth. And there's the rule of thumb with echis, saw-scale vipers, is the farther west you go is where you get your egg layers, and then when you go east you get live birth. But you're talking about different species, but you may have the same species where 1,200 miles away or 3,000 miles away is a different reproductive cycle. So I didn't know if that was similar to that. It's fascinating.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
And that's also a species that it doesn't have an advocate or a champion taxonomically. And it could be that when somebody gets in there and starts digging around, that there could be multiple species, hanging out underneath that name.
Very cool.
Because it's one of those things that's across South America. And, I fully admit to being on team split based off my education and everything I've done. That doesn't mean I necessarily agree with the rat snakes. I will say that, but
fair enough.
But I'm fairly positive that if somebody actually did what needs to be done with that species, there probably would be some undescribed diversity therein that needed to be elevated. And it could be that the egg layers are one taxa and the live bears are another, but remains to be seen.
Very cool.
So
very cool. Well, I feel like we've dove deep into the book. In case people who are listening, excuse me, in case people who are listening who were unaware of Zach's new book, it is The Natural History and Captive Care of False Water Cobras, Barons Racers, Musaranas, and other xenodontine snakes. If you want to see a picture of it, there's a picture of it. It's got an awesome falsie on the front, the blue barons, and
it's a weird looking rhino.
But yeah, definitely hit him up because the book is incredible. Even if you don't keep any of these species, it is a book that you won't want to stop reading because it's tons of stuff you didn't know existed. You know, and
what I was shooting for.
Yeah, and coming from myself that has either worked with a lot of these animals or kept a lot of these animals, it's shit I had no idea. You know what I mean? And like I never kept barons, but like having kept a bunch of falsies and like being curious about xenodontines and loving the forgive me for not remembering the nomenclature. When convergent evolution, there, pull it out of my butt. The convergent evolution between some of the xenodon stuff and like Cossus in Africa, and like looking at which one became a viper and one didn't. You know what I mean?
I never even put those two together. Like I never connected those dots.
There's one xenodon that I can never remember the species name. Hold on,
it's probably Maramimi. I can't say it. There's too many consonants. Maramimi.
Well, there's one that
the Wagneri and the Bothriopsis.
No, hold on. Let me find it. I know the one that looks like Bothriopsis, but it's where the hell is it? Of course, I should have wrote the page numbers down because Lord knows I was going to open the book at some point. Yeah, I know. The where the hell is it? You got me. Well, it's Protheris superciliaris from South Africa. It's just a South American version. And now I can't remember.
Maramii 108.
108.
Or no?
I flipped too many pages. Oh my god. No, it is. Where the hell is it?
Oh wait, hold on.
And Severus is awesome, by the way. That one shot you got of the head.
34.
Okay. No, 115. 115. The Dorbingii.
Dorbingii.
Yeah. If you look at that animal and just the head structure and the body type, and then you look at Protheris superciliaris, the lowland swamp viper from South Africa, dude, the convergent evolution is hilarious.
Yes. And
absolutely hilarious.
South American hognose snake.
Right.
Holy shit. So I thought I knew the one thing that happens when you write a book is that you have to be as humble as can be. If you go into it like I'm the expert, you're going to write a crap book. Of course. I went into it thinking I know a little, I need to know a lot. So here we go. But Dorbingii, this is a snake that flipping it mimics Bothrops alternatus. What is that? Yeah, the Urutu on with its dorsal coloration and its behavior repertoire when you engage it, like it huffs and does the dorsiventral flattening. And then if that doesn't scare you away from it, it takes its tail and goes blip and starts acting like a freaking Argentine coral snake. So it's a double mimic, and it's a mimic across venomous snake families. And I was sitting at this desk when I learned that, and I believe I yelled some expletives and like stopped a kid dead in his tracks in the hallway.
That's awesome.
But it was just like, holy crap! Like I've heard of mimics, but like to have a dual mimicry system where you've got a viper and a lake, like which flavor is going to work today?
Yeah,
that was that's the kind of stuff that I, as a snake nerd, knew that I could geek out about. So when I was writing this thing, I was on the hunt for every little nugget like that I could grab
Sure.
And that's why writing the book, I've said this now on several podcasts, best thing I've ever done professionally. It was cathartic. It was my nerdy zen, hour and a half to 2 hours a day. And I am incredibly happy to jump back into it in December with the Hognose book, because I've been getting everything ready for it. But no, that so yeah. It just was completely blown away by that stuff.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to read more about that stuff. Like, I'm just Smitty and I are both just like you, man. Like, you find that cool, fun fact that just pulls things together and makes you want to deep dive more. And like, just having done my own minute amount of homework on like the African stuff, it makes me want to know about like the South American habitat. Like, how close is it?
Oh God.
And then when you look at, excuse me, if you look at parallels on a map, like they're damn near the same parallel, just in a different hemisphere.
Yes, they are.
And so like it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. There's just so many species in South America and Asia, for that matter, that are you're never going to hear about, you're never really going to see about, or see anything about, and it's a lot of them have that really interesting stuff going on. Like, they're not brightly colored, or they're fairly drab or earth tones and stuff like that, but some of them are just as fascinating as everything else.
I have realized with this, so if you think about the realm of herpetoculture, there's everybody wants to go to Australia, so let's just put Australia over here and get that out of the way. And then there's a fair amount of people that want to go to Africa, mostly venomous keepers, it seems like, really want to go to Africa. But then the ball python's there. But I don't know if well, we're not going to go down that path.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
and then Asia has its Asian rat snakes and boiga, and so there's definitely a niche group of herpetocultural endeavors therein. And then obviously the Europeans have European rat snakes and all that. But you don't really hear people talking about, oh, I'm a South American snake keeper. Like, and I realized that when I was writing I didn't. I like all the things from South America, but I didn't realize how, like, there's niche, and then this is niche, if that makes sense.
Oh,
and
totally.
What was really interesting is it's not really written for a South American snake keeper. It's more like, well, Bear and I fall under the arboreal colubrid genre, so there's a little bit in there for arboreal keepers. And then obviously tricolor hognose snakes, even though they're not at all related to heterodon, they're obviously still part of the heterodon, hognose keeper group. Mm-hmm. So like the hognose keepers of the world were into it. Falsies kind of have their own following now, which was nice.
For sure.
And then Musaranas and Erythrolampris, you either keep those or you don't. You know what I mean? So I realized that by writing the book, I wasn't really writing it for a dedicated geographical audience per se, but the hope was to make one. Like, you read it, then you're kind of like, oh, wow, I like all these things. And then maybe we can get some of these things in human care and bred. Like the velvet swamp snakes are a great example of that. Like there was one clutch produced, and they are doing fantastic. The babies that came out of that clutch took off. Glenn Brooks has some out in California. And I wish that would have happened before I wrote the damn book, because those things have gone from like hatching around this time last year. They're already pushing 9-10 inches. Wow. I mean, they're growing like freaking weeds.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that. So we have these snakes that are super easy to keep, that are beautiful. And once we get them established, we don't have to deal with these worm-ridden, frog-eating nightmares, which is what they are currently. But I could easily see velvet swamp snakes. If you want a bioactive with a snake, Erythrolampris is where it's at, man, because they don't get big. In Europe, they figured this out. There's plenty of keepers that keep snakes in bioactives, and they're badass in that setup. So anyway, I just got a little ranty.
No, it falls in, man. And I was going to say is, and this is, please don't take this as insulting at all, but I feel like if this book had come out, say 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it would not be as desirable as it is now, because because the people now, they're I don't want to use the word thirsty, but for lack of a better synonym, they're thirsty for the knowledge of these niche species, because in the past it was like, oh, we don't import from Peru because everything dies, and it's because they kept them on newspaper with a heat lamp, right? They didn't know any better. They didn't care any better. And now you have a place like Peru that's shut off, and we want the stuff, and the people that are very interested in attaining this stuff. It's a gateway drug, man. I love it.
Yeah, it is kind of a gateway drug. I found out that every snake group I've gotten into, I got into because I got the book first.
Yeah.
So like the king snake addiction, that would not have happened if I didn't have Hubbs's book. And the common king snake, which is, no one talks about that book really. That book needs to be talked about a lot more because even if you don't like Methropeltis, Smitty, but it basically, you can learn everything you want to know about natural history for Cali King Keepers, all the locality information in there. And some of it's dated and some of the names have changed. But that's like I had the key to the kingdom. Yeah. Then I was able to nerd out on the natural history. And then I thought, well, maybe I should get one. And the next thing you know, the bulk of my locality collection is, there's so many king snakes. It's your living nightmare, Justin.
It is. It
literally
is a living nightmare.
Yes. And my poor 15-year-old, his chore is to take care of the kings. And I cackle, but when you open up a rack tub at head level with a king snake that wants to be fed, it doesn't care that your eyes are not mice, or your nose, like it just come out, and so he's got good reflexes now.
And I think that's so cool that you mentioned Brian, because you can see his book's influence in your book.
Oh yeah,
you can just with the maps you did, the locality maps and everything, and then doing 1 or 2 species per map, and like, dude, Brian's all over that. The influence is there. I love it.
No,
love it.
He doesn't know. I've only conversed with. I'm talking like he and I are friends. Yeah, I've done the whole instant messenger thing.
Sure.
But I'm totally fanboying with that book. Like, the only thing, and this isn't a criticism at all, that like is a little bit bothersome, is the book's so freaking big that it's cumbersome.
Like the actual dimensions.
Yeah, the actual dimensions. Like it just, So Eric Burke talked about on one of the NPR episodes that he had this app where you could take pictures of the pages and then convert a book into a PDF.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hell yeah. So the very first, I bought the app, and then I went to my dining room table and I took the King Snake book and converted it into a PDF. And I bought a Kindle just for that book. I didn't have a tablet. I don't, but and now I can, when I'm on an airplane or I'm, now I can go through it and I don't have this giant textbook, in my bag.
Yeah.
But no, it's fantastic.
But
I would not be into king snakes if I didn't have that book.
Just not sure how I feel about the e-reader stuff. I don't know. Like I've gotten a couple books in PDF form, and I've trying to read them on your phone is especially difficult.
Yeah,
because you got to zoom in, and then like you're trying to read the lines, and you got the whole thing. Like Kindles, I guess, is a little bit different because that's more geared towards that. But I don't know. There's something about a tangible book.
Oh no, I am on Team Book 100%. But in that case, I always wanted to read it while I was on an airplane.
Yeah.
And and by the way, I'm like 6'2", 250. So when I'm on a freaking airplane, my elbows can't go out this way, or I'm hitting someone in the face. So
you're turning the pages like this.
Yes, I can't even freaking type on an airplane without. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
So,
but I also
worked out great.
I also like all my research papers that I download. I always read them on computer because I can highlight them. Yep. And I can, make notes, and no different than you could if you had them printed in your hand. But now if I just press one button, the highlighter goes away, or I can copy and paste or what have you. And it's brilliant. Did you get the Mountain King book too?
Oh, hell yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, good. No, I bought, I think, like I said, I've gone a little bit insane with the book collecting. I think I wrote him an email and said, put all of them in a box.
Yes.
So I bought every single book he had.
It's a blank check.
Did you get Dr. Connor's rattlesnake books too?
Dr.
because he made for a while. Hub put a package together, and it was, I think he had 2 books, and then I think Dr. Connor had 2 books as well.
I don't know if I have those or not.
Okay. It's like it's they're rattlesnake books because that's
I bought the Common King Snakes, which wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
And then I was doing what you said, like turning the pages at my dining room table. And then I was an idiot and threw it in my backpack, and we went on a crayfish trip.
Oh.
And the book got like slightly wet, but now it is
just enough to irk
not perfect. It's like at 95% perfection, but it's not perfect. So I emailed Brian and was like, I need another copy. Would you sign this one, please? So I have one that's like signed to me. Oh,
that's cool.
And it literally it came into my house. I opened the box and put it right on the bookcase. I don't think it's left the bookcase. I think it's been there.
It's good.
It's just there waiting, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've also explained to my wife that if I die in a fire, do not just tell somebody, here are the books, because I know you won't be able to deal with the animals, but if you sell the books, you can probably put Colin through a semester of college.
or multiple years by that time.
So like, please don't just offload them because they bother you every now and then.
I not to tell stories, but one of my favorite book stories ever is my late mentor was a major book collector, and he had moved away to North Carolina before he passed. And when he passed, his widow asked me to come up and grab some snakes and that kind of thing. And I said to her, I said, hey, where's the books? Because I'd love to buy some of the books, especially since they were his. You know what I mean? Like, even if I had duplicates or they were cheap, it didn't matter. They were his. And she's like, no, I already struck a deal with a guy who's a book dealer, and I sold them all to him for one lump thing. And I said, okay, whatever. And then about 2 or 3 years later, I was at a reptile show, and there was a guy selling books, and there was this one book, and I was like, oh, I like that. And I opened it, and it had his name written on the inside, because he had like a library stamp, because I guess in the 80s everyone would just trade books, so he would library stamp his name in every single book. And I found one of his books and I bought it, and I thought that was awesome.
Pretty cool.
So
that's very cool.
Don't let your wife just give them away.
Yeah, no. So she knows not to do that. And every now and then a book will come by. So there's like the Chimera New Caledonian Gecko book, and
nice.
It came up for sale, and I was on the couch. She was sitting next to me, and I was like, see this? Look at how much this is worth. Yeah. I have the German version and the English version. So
that's cool. That's very cool.
Let's please not like these are not just paperweights.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of those Chimera books, man, it's like a first edition holographic Pikachu card or something.
It is
like just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
But anyway.
Oh yeah.
Nate asked earlier, are you planning on getting more Paleosuchus for West Lib? And if so, would it be Trigonatus or Palpebrosus?
Paleosuchus. Why am I drawing a blank?
Dwarf caimans.
Oh, yeah. Trigonatus. Right now the answer is no, because I have 110 people, including me in this major, and I think there are 106 people who are not afraid of that little nightmare. so
Dude, I've always wanted one. I've never had space.
Oh,
it kills me. I wanted kids.
But I'm not afraid of him. He is an angel straight from heaven. He's very shy because he's a trig, but when he's not shy, he has this neat behavior where he mock charges people, and that just like makes people roll. I'm building a new building, so I wrote a grant and got like over $1 million to build an Appalachian Aquatic Conservation Center. That's what it's called. Nice. And obviously, Paleosuchus trigonatus has nothing to do with Appalachia, but it lives in forested streams, so it has a little tie-in. So there's going to be a whole bunch of Appalachian things in a trig crayfish in this building, and he's going to get a nice big stream exhibit and all that jazz, and maybe that'll make him calm down. But when we got that little guy, he was a hatchling. He was like 11 inches long, and he's not big now. but he's not small. He's like 2.5 feet. But he still can be. He can get up to 4 feet, 4, maybe even 5, depending on which sex we have. So I have all intentions of building a little area for it where it can live its best life.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm real excited about that building. I'm about to go full-blown turtle here because I had to pick. Obviously, crayfish were going to be propagated in the building because that's part of my research effort. But I was looking at all these other animals, and if you know anything about freshwater diversity in the apps, the other two groups are, everybody talks about freshwater mussels, which is like keeping pet rocks. But it is quite literally as close to a pet rock as you can get. And then people do fresh or non-game fish, so darters and centrarchids and mad toms and things like that. And I've kept fish, but there's a learning curve there. And I was trying to figure out like, what is the other animal that we can kind of specialize on? And then some DNR guys were like, hey, we've got a bunch of turtles that we intercepted at the airport on their way to China. And I thought, you idiot, why don't you do turtles, for crying out loud? You're doing herpetoculture now. And so it's going to be a crayfish turtle building. So excellent. I think I have the only crayfish turtle building maybe on planet Earth. But I'm really looking forward to
hopefully you won't have the turtles and crayfish together.
Yes. No. There will be locks on the crayfish tanks because I can totally see somebody like, feed the turtles some crayfish, and then the federally listed Wyandotte River crayfish are fed off to a turtle. That would be a horrible, horrible day, and it will never happen. So
yes, for sure.
We are going to make sure that doesn't go down. But
I will say this: I have a affinity for watching time-lapse mollusk videos.
Yes.
Like your pet. Yes, it's a pet rock. It is. You're literally watching barnacles grow until you watch it in time lapse, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!"
Yeah. No, unionid freshwater mussels. I mean, we're going like way off the herpetoculture path here, but I challenge. Cool. They appear to be boring until you study their life history biology and their little babies. Their babies are little vampiric clams. They're called Glochidia, and they've got big ass fangs and this like oral, this gut, and they basically have to get into a fish's face and its gills, latch onto a gill, and they're vampires. They suck blood, and they use the fish to swim up and down the stream to get them away from mom. So it's a super cool biology. Yeah. And the way they do that is that they have these lures that look like fish. And if you watch some YouTube videos of freshwater mussel lures, that's when freshwater mussels become insanely badass, because their lures look exactly like specific species of minnows and darters. There's one called a rainbow that looks like a freaking crawdad. And when it puts its display out, it scuttles along the bottom of the stream, just like a crayfish does. And it's a flipping clam. Like, this is, and these things don't have eyes. So it's evolution at an extreme. And that is very, very cool.
Yeah, man.
But most of them are extremely endangered. They're very hard to rear if you don't have any experience. I have this much experience with freshwater mussels. So I was just kind of like, no, I'm going to stay away. But turtles, I've kept a lot of turtles. So turtles is where it's at. So we're going to be rearing a bunch of turtles for like assurance colonies, which is cool.
Very cool.
And then we're going to be, hopefully, if we can get some things in line, be breeding turtles for release in sites that have been restored, which is kind of what I think. That is the ultimate goal. I've since Zeusai has started at West Liberty in 2016, my ultimate goal was to do something where we are propagating an animal that is being released into restored habitat. And so I think we're finally going to be doing that.
Legitimate.
Bring corn snakes back to West Virginia.
We found them in West Virginia. So, and they were made illegal to keep, which is probably for the best. Right around the time when I was like, well, maybe a West Virginia locality for corns would be cool. And then the regs went into effect, and I was like, yep, that's not happening. But for a little while there, the regs were like, you couldn't keep any corn snake in West Virginia. And then the DNR guys realized how problematic that was, and they realized how many corn snakes there were in West Virginia, and they changed their regs, and now you can keep even normal colored corns as long as you can prove that it's a locality. So like Miami corns, we can have those because they don't look anything like our population. So now you can keep corn snakes in West Virginia.
Very cool.
South Carolina did that when they put their regs in place. It was like, and then they came back and were like, wait a second, there's a lot of colors and combinations here.
Yes.
So basically it was like anything that looks like a natural corn, if it's over 21 inches, you can't sell it. So
yeah. No.
I also, you may not know the answer right away just because you're still constructing and developing this program, but I imagine having the turtles sequestered away from any other reptile is probably a big deal with the whole releasing them thing.
Oh God.
Because that's always something I've been terrified of. And like people that know me, like if I ever collect an animal from my own personal collection, it's never going back in the wild because I don't know what's, dare I say, living inside it. You know what I mean? Some kind of pathogen from all ends of the planet that happened to be living in my room. And although everything is alive and healthy and happy, I don't necessarily want that out in the wild.
No, the quarantine procedures for these animals is next level. So before we can receive the turtles, they get multiple screenings for multiple diseases. There's a disease called ranavirus, which rampages through amphibians, but it also creates like kind of like a COVID-like symptom in things like eastern box turtles.
Oh.
So you can do a quick swab, no different than well, it is different than a COVID test because you're not swabbing up the nose of a box turtle, but you're basically shoving up its bum and doing an oral swab. Different swabs, by the way. But you look for that. There's mycoplasma is another one that you have to do. And there's a couple other viruses. I don't remember the names of them, and then the animals, they go not just through one quarantine. There's quarantine 1, quarantine 2, quarantine 3, and then quarantine 4. And each of those quarantines is a minimum of 90 days, not 60 days. So the level of health screening that these animals are undergoing is kind of astronomical. And the only way that we're able to do it is we're working. We finally became what's called a safe partner with AZA. So that's Saving Animals from Extinction. It's AZA changes their abbreviations about every 3 years. They used to have SSPs.
Right.
They still have SSPs, but SSPs have kind of gone by the side. Those are species survival plans. Now the new kid in town is the SAFE program. And so I'm not going to talk about what species we're working with because they asked me not to.
Yeah.
But we're part of that now. But that means we got to play by everybody's rules, which we want to do. But like when we received our first batch of turtles, I had to find a whole new, like, not only a new place that didn't have any animals, but like a new building that didn't have any animals, that will never have animals, so it can function as what I think it's our Q3 or Q4, which is after they've gone through the multiple screenings and they've been in human care for at least 200 days. Like the criteria for this is it's intimidating. I'll say that. But at the same time, it really is worth it in the end, because they are ultimately, hopefully, going to make it back to the wild. So you don't want to be bringing something from the human world, out into the wild. So
it's fantastic. Fantastic.
Is there any new developments as far as on the crypto front?
The only new development on the crypto front is that I've started doing a lot of work at the Orion Center for Indigo Conservation, Central Florida Zoo, which OCIC. I know that Phil has his own opinions of that place.
Yes, I do. But your friend is doing the Lord's work, so God bless him.
But I can say that Dr. Bogan, who's the guy I work with, probably wasn't there. He was not there on the initial onset, and he's now the director of it, and he does really good stuff. He's the president of the American Reptile and Amphibian Veterinary Association, ARAV. So this guy is crazy awesome to work with, and he's the most down to earth, guy ever. Like if I lived in Florida, he and I would be best friends.
Nice.
And when I go down there, like I am kind of like, I'll be the public face of crypto and I talk about crypto. I've done a couple studies on crypto. I don't really feel like I'm a crypto biologist. Dr. Bogan is a crypto biologist. He has studied the living crap out of cryptosporidium. And basically the general consensus, my general consensus on, I'm not going to speak for him, is that it's everywhere. It's kind of like Nido. I think it's insanely disingenuous if you have a large population of pythons and you got them from several places to think you don't have Nido somewhere, or serpentivirus, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And with crypto, the newest development, if there was a development that I would say, is that my approach to it is very different. In that I think it's all about stress management. If you keep the animals calm, if you can get them to in biology, we call it homeostasis. If we just basically get them to where they're vibing, life is good, they're okay with their surroundings, we're not stressing them out, we don't get them into the physiological state that then allows the crypto to go from asymptomatic in the snake to symptomatic. And I think if you look at people who actually have active crypto shedding, have the bulge, have the liquefied poo, have the regurgitation over and over and over again, there's probably a secondary stressor that's going on with that animal that you aren't, you're freaking out as you should, because you've got this horrible set of,
right.
Of characteristics going down with your animal. But at the same time, there's probably a husbandry element that's out of whack that initiated that. I also think that's why, and I've even had this happen. This is why quarantining your animals is so freaking important. But I've received animals that were long-term captives when I got into the king snakes, and they came in, I put them in the quarantine, and then they immediately start regurging. And I talked to the person, and these were like well-known people, and they basically were like, I don't know what's going on. It wasn't doing that with me. And then I do my crypto test, and the thing has crypto. It was just asymptomatic because it lived wherever it was for 8 years.
Right.
It was getting mice routinely and had gotten accustomed to the room, and it knew, the secondary stressors in that environment and had an idea what the hell's going on. You take that from there, put it in a snake bag, shove it in a box, send it out through FedEx. It enters a whole new environment.
It's a little stressed.
We need a chemical receptor, or, a new chemical environment, which I don't think we think about enough. It's like the chemical interpretation of this new world it enters. That's going to stress out anything. And now that it's stressed, boom, the crypto that's been lying dormant seizes its opportunity, and then it becomes symptomatic.
Yeah.
That I think is the reality of it. I don't know. And I know there's people listening that are probably like, I don't have crypto and I got 100 snakes. If you have a closed collection and you're not bringing in snakes, sure, you may not have crypto, but it is far more common than people realize.
Sure.
That's my soapbox on that one.
Yeah.
And I've said this, and I've had some people message me, and they're like, "Oh, well, your collection must be like a crypto pit of doom." Like, don't interpret it that way, people. Like, I actually, if you are symptomatic with crypto, you go to the crypto ward, or you are humanely euthanized in my collection. But that's if you get to the point that you have symptoms.
Right.
If you don't have that, it's good. But we've screened our collection here at the university. I can afford to do that. And we do crypto research. So we did every freaking snake, and we did 2 or 3 tests. And then we did that in like the summer when everything's doing well. We screened coming out of brumation when they're stressed. And I think we had 7 snakes pop that came back as negative in the middle of summer when everything was going great. And they didn't show any symptoms. They weren't regurging. There wasn't any kind of liquefied stool. There wasn't a bulge in the gut. This was just we're screening everybody. Just see. And sure. And we didn't, and all of the animals, we had snakes that we thought, okay, they probably have it. And they have never popped. And then all of the animals that popped that time, we didn't think they had it at all. And some of them never left. our facility, and some of them we got from very reputable breeders and were in their own space, and they were the only animals in that particular room that had it. So
yeah.
But yeah, no. Crypto
Is it
its own beast?
I guess like the thing that confuses me about the tipping point of something becoming symptomatic is like, is it tied to cortisol?
The short answer is yes.
Like at basically, what is it that's letting crypto take hold?
It's any kind of increase in stress, and I don't mean like the welfare is bad. I'm talking about something initiates physiological stress.
Yeah.
And so there's like 3 big triggers for that. One of them is a seasonal shift because you have a hormone exchange for like follicular development and all that. And in some instances, you need a like, oh God, it's cold, cortisol, and then that hits the brain, and then it initiates a reproductive hormone cascade. And so that's where seasonality comes into play. The act of breeding is normally it is very stressful for males when they're trying to get the job done, and then it's very stressful for females once the job is done. And that's going to cause it. And then another one is just growth. When you're growing, you're under physiological stress the entire time, and there's going to be some secondary pathways to cortisol and cortisol mimics and things like that. And I think that's why the little snakes get it, and it just wipes them out. So yeah, no, but and another thing I found out, which I can like set a record straight here. So there's a somewhat, now I would say, infamous paper. I think it came out of Turkey or somewhere near the Middle East, Southern Europe. I don't remember exactly where they did a test where they took Cryptosporidium spores, inoculated various things, and they put them out in the sun, and they basically were trying like freezing environmental sterilization. So they were freezing things, boiling things, hitting them with sunlight. And they hit them with the sunlight, and the sunlight made the crypto become inert. And the net response to that was that, sunlight kills crypto. And I have said on several podcasts, sunlight kills crypto.
You have.
It does deactivate crypto. It may not necessarily deactivate all the crypto. It deactivates a majority of the crypto. But if you can like use multiple mechanisms of sterilization, you should do that. I hit everything with 12% peroxide. That is the only thing that's been proven to just wipe it. Like it doesn't live through that.
Crazy how strong that thing is.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's insane.
The first time I used it, I didn't understand that you could bleach yourself.
Yeah.
And I looked at my hands and was like, holy crap, because they were like
chemical burns.
Oh man, like as white can be. I've since found out that you can get it at a discounted price. I was buying it on Amazon, and you could get the cheapest I could find. It was 4 gallons for $100, so it was $25 a gallon. And apparently, if you go to a carpet cleaning store,
really,
hydrogen peroxide is part of carpet cleaning, and you can get it cheaper there. So
interesting.
But I hit everything. If a snake moves out of a tub at my house, it gets peroxide. Then I hit it with bleach. Then I hit it with ammonia. Then I hit it with Lysol hydrogen peroxide spray. So it gets another round. Then it sits outside in the sun for like a week or two. And then I deem it clean. And that's for something. I don't care if it has crypto, if it doesn't have crypto. If it could be carrying anything, that's going to wipe it out.
Yeah.
So,
basically, if it survived at that point, it deserves to be there.
Exactly. Kill everything else. And it's indestructible.
This may be a dumb question on two fronts. One, because of the size of the tools and implements that we typically use in herpetoculture. But has anyone done like autoclave?
We do.
Okay. Would that do. I mean, obviously, you're not going to put 24-inch hemostats in an autoclave, or let alone have your own at home because they are relatively expensive. But I didn't know if that was a factor.
It's a mixed bag on what people say.
Okay.
I've read that the autoclave kills everything.
Right.
You've got the pressure, which then increases the temperature, which is like, I've also heard it's a spore, and spores are good at dealing with heat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've heard if you get a freaking steam cleaner, which is not an autoclave,
right?
Steam cleaning can get rid of the spore. So it's like I am leaning more towards it's certainly going to kill some of them.
Yeah.
Some of the spores. And the other thing I think people need to, Dr. Bogan, actually, when last time I was down at OCIC, we were talking about this, and he explained something that I was like, I never thought of it that way. When we're talking about like a total kill for the 12%, if you use 10% hydrogen peroxide, the weakest members of the crypto population are going to die with that. It's just to kill everything, you need 12%. So you're going to be killing something with boiling water. You're going to, and if you think about people, there are tough people and there are, weak people. And this got
Chris
real dark.
Quick.
But same thing with cryptospore. So, but the goal obviously is total kill. So 100% of them dead. And that's where having that 12% hydrogen peroxide is the one thing that seems to get you there.
What about microwaves?
No clue.
Can't put your tweezers in the microwave.
I mean, force them in there and watch what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
exciting.
Yeah. Well, and I will chime in with this too. Is that there's in herpetoculture we get trends of biological fear, right? Whether it be serpentivirus or crypto or paramyxovirus or what have you, right? And yes, I said the P word, everyone. I'll also say that learning or reading your animals, learning some of the things that may happen to them, or some key things that are known to happen with certain species because of X, Y, and Z. And every year we learn more and more and more. But like, for example, on my road to suboc knowledge, I had animals that regurgitated chronically, and I was like, oh my God, I've got crypto. And I could just say is that people say that Bogotova subocularis transbagos rat snakes that was for you, Jeff. They get chronic regurg from poor ventilation, from too high of a humidity, from too much water bowl. And I didn't know this, and I was panicking, and I was like, so long story short, read your animals, learn some of the attributes, and get a test. But don't assume that you are spreading infection just because 2 snakes out of 20 are not doing well.
Yeah. And if you're really neurotic about crypto, our good friend Chris Painshaw is very neurotic about crypto.
Yes, he is.
Shout out to Chris because his collection is flawless.
The tits.
The tits. But I would say that one of the things that's worth doing is if you get the test from multiple labs. There's Raw, which everybody uses in Texas. And I know the owner of Raw definitely use Raw. They literally are the first people, I think they are the first to come up with a test specific to Cryptosporidium associated with squamates, which is lizards and herps.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with spending another $25 and getting a test done at University of Florida because they're going about this slightly different, mechanisms, slightly different approaches, slightly different techniques. And if you get a negative from Raw and you send it off to U of F and you get a negative from University of Florida, you're good. If you get a negative from Raw, you get a positive from U of F, you get a negative from U of F, you get a positive from Raw, then okay. But if you're going down the testing lane, you're already investing, so you're already like committing the money.
Right.
It might be worth it to incorporate a couple different labs.
Sure.
Because it's only gonna, I can flat out tell you, we've had a couple animals here where we had scares, and they were pretty high end animals, and I was like, oh God, like, I'm not going to accept a negative. Yeah. I know in the back of my head, I'll be like, well, that's all well and good, but it still has it because I know what has to hit, and we've used multiple labs, And I can tell you, just the peace of freaking mind you get from, well, Rawl said it's negative and U of F said it's negative. There really is something that, maybe it is negative. Because we have I don't care sharing the example. We have Kentucky pine snakes, which were very near and dear to me because I was on the old kingsnake.com forum in the early 2000s when Will Bird and Phil Peak found the founding stock. Like I remember on the Field Herper forum going through it one day and I was like, oh my God, they found the pine,
Yeah.
And so there was just a nostalgia thing with that. And then I'm close to Kentucky. And I was just like, I want these. These have to be in our collection. So I got them. And then sure enough, the strain of crypto that we had here at the university was like DEFCON 4 for anything Pitchophis. Like if it ended up in the vicinity of a pit, it died.
Wow.
And so our Kentucky pines started to regurge. And I looked at the regurge and was like, that is a very generous mouse. Like the kid gave this thing an extra large mouse and it needed a medium. So maybe it puked because of the mouse size. But then, I'm going back and forth because Pitchophis can eat very large things.
Yeah.
And so I just immediately was like, 2 crypto tests, one to Raw, one to U of F, go. And they came back negative. And sure enough, things never regurgitated again since. And we've tested the snot out of those animals and they're fine.
Excellent.
Excellent. That's the way to do it. But I think that crypto is the boogeyman of colubrid keepers. It will forever be.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And there's some other boogeymen coming though. There's a you mentioned paramyxo, and then inclusion body disease, IBD. Oh, yeah. There's a Matt talked about this when we had the Matt is back episode. Yeah. There's a virus that's very similar to one or the other of those two. That's coming. It's in colubrid colonies in Europe. I know when that hits in America, it's going to be it hits the right collection in America. It could very well be here right now.
It probably
the right person gets it. It's going to light up social media and then just stand back and watch the show.
Yeah. There's also, people aren't talking about it, but there's a python virus that hails from, I believe it's Queensland, called sunshine virus. And it's named after the area that it comes from. And it's been in python collections in Australia. It's been in python collections in the United States. And it's been around for a little while, but it's not as bad as, say, the standard Nido serpento, whatever you call it. But now it is either mutated or now it's just had the ability to be exposed to venomous collections. And there's a lot of big venomous people that have been losing snakes left and right because of this python virus that has affected pit vipers and crotalids. And especially some of the venom producing facilities for pharmaceuticals, they're losing animals and they're trying to contain it, and they are containing it. But I imagine that that's probably going to spread as well in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe 5 years. You're going to hear more about sunshine virus.
So the moral of the story is just quarantine.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I have a very, very, very loving, tolerant wife. We've mentioned her a bunch.
We have.
The quarantine room is my son's bedroom. But then I get new animals in. And one of the things zoos do is when you bring an new animal into quarantine starts over for everybody.
Oh yeah.
And, I was like, God damn it. We're at like day 70. I was like, I don't want to start this over.
Yeah.
And so my wife has this like little nook upstairs, and I tried to use my fancy degrees to figure out a way to hide some snakes and tubs in her little nook, which is supposed to be the one snake-free room in the entire house. And
of course,
I can't hide shit for shit. And so, I got the message. I actually I believe she sent me a photograph and was like, what the hell? And I was like, quarantine, honey. So, but that's the other thing is like just making sure when you do the quarantine, you actually follow the rules of quarantine. Like just saying, this is my quarantine. I've noticed people do this. So all new snakes come in there. Well, then you bring the new snakes in with the old snakes that are coming out. They get the damn virus, the bug, the mites, the whatever. And then you move them into the collection. You're like, I don't know how this got here.
Yeah.
Having multiple spaces for the quarantine is very important.
Yeah. I'll even go so far as to say, because I just moved my whole facility room, whatever you want to call it, this summer, and I went from having essentially 3 spots in the house to just one room, and realizing, okay, I had tools in this room and I had tools in that room, and by tools I mean snake hooks, hemostats, probe sets, whatever. I took color electrical tape and wrapped it so I know, okay, if I'm using these animals get the green electrical tape, and these animals, they get the blue electrical tape. And when the electrical tape gets crappy from me washing them or whatever, I peel it off and I put new. But now I'm literally washing my hands between rooms and not cross-contaminating equipment, because we think, okay, I'm going to use the green tweezers to feed these and the blue tweezers, but I'm still dipping them in the same sink of rats, in the same bowl of frozen thawed rats, and I'm literally cross-contaminating it without even realizing. So little things like that, in my opinion, can really make or break you. So.
Yeah. Now I have every rack in my garage has its own set of hemos. And then what I started doing is you were talking about the common rat bucket. I have a cart I bought on Amazon that goes with me everywhere. And I thaw out all the rodents, and now I know how many tubs are in each rack. And so I just, before I even feed anything, I make piles. So there's a pile of rodents that equals however many tubs are in this rack, pile in this. So there, even when I'm going to grab the food, I have dedicated hemos and a dedicated pile of rodents, so that I'm not dipping in. Because when I had my crypto scare at my house, I went like down a neurotic pathway that wasn't healthy.
Of course. It was
just like overthinking everything. And then I thought, all right, now take a step back and just be reasonable. And how can you mitigate something? But the problem is, if you have those mother effing forward flies, you can do all this to hell and back, and it doesn't matter, because the forward flies are going to go from one tub to another tub to another tub to another tub. And they are absolutely the vector. Like, there's no question. And they're not just a vector for crypto.
Right.
They're a vector for everything. Every single thing. And they are horrid creatures. I don't want to nuke all the mosquitoes on planet Earth. They serve a purpose, but all the freaking forwards can die, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Like, they are the worst. They are the thing that gives me heartburn when I open a tub, and I just got off of 10 weeks travel, and I had a freaking Mexican hognose snake regurge, or it didn't eat a medium mouse. And then, of course, this happened. I fed 2 days before I left. I was gone for a week, so that damn thing was in the tub for 9 days. And I had a fly explosion.
Yep.
And I was, that wasn't cool. So, keeping tabs of the damn bugs and the fly management. I would love it if somebody would dedicate their life to just figuring out how to kill them in mass. I've heard people talk about the fly traps, the gluey traps. I don't think that those really, they work, but they don't work. The only thing that works, and it's disgusting, that I found is that I dedicate a mouse, and I take a Chinese food container with the plastic lid and a soldering iron, and I burn some holes, and I just throw the mouse in there and accept the stench. And create what they want more than anything, which is they want a dead rodent. And that wipes them out. It also is really hard for the people you live with to deal with. If Kathy leaves for a weekend, my house is going to smell like death. I just set those things up everywhere to just catch, even if I don't have a mite explosion, just to get rid of as many of them as possible. And I don't have tons of them, but if I have one of them, that's one too many. So I'm just trying to get rid of
them. Jeff earlier asked, any thoughts on the rumor that tokays often carry crypto in reptile collections, given how many of those are brought in?
I think that tokays are getting a bad rap there, because I think, based off the PCRs that people have done with wild animals, there's so many strains of crypto that any wild caught snake or lizard or turtles get it too, has the potential to bring in crypto. We did a fun study here. So, I'm a taxonomist. I describe new species of crayfish, and I understand how you do the molecular genetics and all of that. And so but I can't do the molecular biology. Like I'm a troglodyte. I flip rocks. I catch crayfish. That's the extent of my technology.
Such a vivid word, troglodyte.
Yeah, I have people that do that here that are really good at it. And so when we had our infamous outbreak I've talked a lot about back in 2018, I took some of the poo from our black-tailed crebo that was pure liquid, and we PCR'd it, and we actually were able to do the thing that RAL and U of F does, and we got the raw data that they get. And so I was able, since we had the data, because you can't get that data from those labs.
Right.
It's proprietary. If they give you that, then they're secret. But we did it here. And when we blasted it, that's where you take the genetic sequence and you blast it in this place called GenBank, where good-hearted biologists put the genetic sequence for like certain genes of every living thing. We got back in our snake, we got back Cryptosporidium verinae, which is not the one that's supposed to hurt snakes. We got Cryptosporidium serpentes, which is the one that's supposed to get at snakes. And then we had Cryptosporidium spa 1, Cryptosporidium spa 2, Cryptosporidium spa 3. There were 7 different species of crypto. So, like, everything can get its own strain in theory. So the tokay gecko strain, that's just one of many.
Yeah.
So I don't really think that tokays bring it in any more than sunshine snakes.
Anything else, right?
What's the snake that everybody you see at the reptile show? That sunbeam snakes.
Sunbeam.
There you go. Yes, the classic reptile show import.
Yes, of course.
They're bringing in crypto. The toad-headed agamas are bringing in crypto. So, there's lots of things bringing in crypto.
Yeah.
That's my theory on that.
Not to switch gears, but I definitely want to go back to the book if we can.
Sure.
So
let's go.
I want to know personally your favorite part of your book.
Oh, Jesus.
And don't just be like, oh, the false water cobra section.
No.
What was the most captivating thing for you to put into the book that like really stood out in your mind? Because I mean, there's a ton of awesome stuff, and I'm sure you were giddy as a school kid the whole time, right? But what was the one thing that really stuck for you that was like, man, I'm so happy we got that?
Probably me sucking it up in the 11th hour and writing the Erythrolamprus chapter, if I had one, because I was done. And it was nagging at me that I had the yellow-bellied Liophis is what they're called in herpetoculture. I had them at the time. They've since passed. And I was just like, I just felt guilty. I don't know what else to say. Like, you're settling too soon. Like, you owe it to these animals to throw that chapter in. But I also knew the taxonomy, because each chapter, if you don't have the book, there's a big nerdy natural history systematics chunk, and then there's a big nerdy herpetoculture chunk. And I knew that the damn taxonomy of that group was nightmarish because it's one of the largest genera of snakes in South America. Mm-hmm. And I had tried to address every taxa. So I knew right off the bat, can't do that with this one because it's just going to get too ad nauseum boring. So I just focused on the species that were that were in herpetoculture. So I did that. But I did that, and it's also special to me, not to get like sentimental and corny.
Yeah, I mean that's the heart of the question.
Yeah, but my wife had we had a big scare with Kath, and she had a large tumor on her pancreas, which is like the last thing you want a tumor on.
Yeah.
So, and she had to have a pancreectomy, which is where you remove, like, I think she lost 2/3 of her pancreas. Her spleen is now gone. And so she got that in Morgantown, which is where West Virginia University is. It's about an hour from here. And I told everyone at work, like, I will be with my wife in the hospital until she leaves the hospital. So y'all can just deal. And she had that done in April. And so I basically frantically tried to get all the pubs. And then I sat in the hospital with Kathy, read the pubs. I talk about it in the acknowledgement section, but it was just kind of cool that, you know, I was there with Kathy. I was working on the book. It was an important part in our lives because we got rid of that mother effing tumor. So she's still here. And then, because she knew I was having so much fun writing in the hospital, she thought it'd be a good idea to eat a piece of pizza, which introduced a lot of fat, which your pancreas gets rid of. And then she promptly got pancreatitis and then spent another 13 days in the hospital. So, and that was the scariest hospital visit that I've had, because pancreatitis is no joke. That is rough. But I was there, and, you know, when she would sleep, I would work. And so I just know where I was when I was writing that part of the book. And it was it was like, I refused to quit. Like, the world was throwing bombs at me. I was on the fence as to whether I was going to write this chapter anyway. And I just kind of gutted it out and got it done. And in the end, if there's anything the book could potentially contribute to that would be new to herpetoculture, it would basically be like people reading that particular chapter, us getting some of these things from Europe, and then them becoming part of American herpetoculture, because they are wonderful, wonderful little snakes.
Awesome.
That would be it. And then if there was something else, it was that first chapter, because I wrote that the first version of that first chapter would have put everybody to sleep. Like, I wrote it like I was writing a journal.
Yeah.
And you get rid of all the fun nerdiness and all the adjectives. It's not meant to be fun. It's meant to be like business. Yeah, like, not business, but succinct and to the point.
Yes.
And I read it and was like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
This is like, I did not hit the target. And so it took me like just so many attempts to kind of get that voice. I didn't know how important it was. I didn't know how important it was to, like, when you lock in with your mind, say mind's eye, but your mind's voice.
Right.
And you've got it. You can't freaking lose it. Like,
no.
You know, and that was really hard. Like, I didn't write anything about crayfish for a year and a half. I basically was like, grad students, go. And so they would write the crayfish pubs. I had a postdoc that was awesome. He was writing the crayfish pubs. So I'm still relevant in crayfish land, which was important.
Yeah.
But I just got that voice and was like, I can't let go of this.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Because it took way longer than I thought to get there.
But it's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know. I hope that answered it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That was more than I was expecting, to be honest. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's passion, man. I love it.
Yeah.
It makes the book that much better.
The thing is, I wanted to write the book that I wanted when I was in college. When I was 20, that's the book I wanted. Like, this is what I wanted to read.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, I'm in a place to do this now. And I needed some street cred on the herpetoculture side. And so I was like, why the F not do it? Just do it. And so,
I mean, I don't think you need any street cred. You are street cred, my friend.
In academia, you need street cred. In AZA, you need street cred.
Yeah, but
they are,
fuck those guys.
I can't say that as the guy.
I know.
I major. But
anyone who's AZA is listening, I'm joking.
Yes.
AZA.
But no. So, and I don't even know if this gets me street cred in those circles. But I don't really care. There's a book now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say one thing though that it did teach me is that, like, I kind of feel like I found what I'm supposed to do with the second half of my career. Like, the first half of your career when you're an academic, you have to do you have to fall in line and be one of the ants marching, and you can't do the fun stuff you want to do.
Yeah.
Because that's how you build your reputation. And if I were to do this when I was fresh out of my PhD, I don't know if I would be able to get any funding. And I have to get funding because in the end, I've got to support student research. And I did that. I wrote the journal articles. I played the game. I schmoozed with the grants. I swam in the bureaucracy. And so I'm established now, but I don't really want to do that for the rest of my life. This was like fun and cathartic and zen.
Yeah.
I'd much rather do that than write a journal article any day.
Absolutely.
So no. So I have every intention of, I'm pretty sure there will be a book project every second of every day. I've got them lined up in my head. Like I got to get Hognose done. Then I got to get this crayfish book done. And I'm going to get them both done by 2025 because I can. It doesn't mean the Hognose book will be out in 2025. That just means it'll be done by 2025.
Yeah.
But I really want to do a Florida King book. I don't know if anybody will buy a Florida King book.
Yes, they will.
but Hubs did such a good job. I've thought like relentlessly, like, what the hell am I going to do that's any different? So that's the problem there.
That's been my crossroads too, because I've been tempted. I've tossed around the idea of doing something on Baird's.
Yeah,
but it's like, is there really? There wouldn't be a whole lot. It wouldn't be a very big book. Like,
okay.
I don't think it matters. I think that herpetoculture needs as many of these things as possible.
Yes, I would agree.
I think that this is what legitimizes us in a manner of speaking. I'm not getting like snotty here. The opposition that's making the regs, they all, for the most part, maybe not the politicians, but the wildlife biologists, they all come from academia in some way. And if you write a book that can show the world, like, I understand snake biology, I love these things, and I'm championing them, that's where herpetoculture goes crashing into the realm of conservation. And it's really hard to shut someone up, like, or to say you're not legitimate if you're literally on the same team, So that's one of the angles that I was like, huh. And I didn't realize that until it was done. Like,
that's great.
I didn't. Yeah, but I also want to do a dry marking book.
Oh hell yeah! One of my favorite reptile books that I own is called the Diminutive Giant. It is on the dusky pygmy rattlesnake, Citrus malarius barbari.
Mm-hmm.
It's only on the subspecies dusky. The book is realistically maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick. It is on the verge of being called a pamphlet.
Yeah,
but it is awesome.
I have that one, and you are correct.
It is. I think you can find online. It's like $12 on Amazon or something. But anybody who's into rattlesnake evolution and rattlesnake ecology, just buy it and just have it because.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the author's name, so forgive me if that person listens to this, but that person did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now people like us that are really nerding out on that, we have that. So if Smitty wants to do a book on Baird's rat snakes and it's only a 1/16 of an inch thick, who cares? It's there, So
no, I and then another thing is like self-publishing. I looked at that initially and was like, no. I mean, I will publish lots of books with Russ. Russ and I are buds. But there's a couple I probably will just go off and it'll be like a 9-month project just to get it out into the ether, and then it's out.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying. Now, quality control is important. I think that's where the peer review process comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I try to be an open book. Mark O'Shea just like ripped this thing because he's insane and keeps a list of every freaking living snake that's up to date. So some of the names were old. Now I'm going to say they were older. They were like, there were papers that came out within 3 years of me using them, but there was a paper that came out within 3 months that Mark knew. So that guy is next level. So, but having him review it and having other people review, like, I think that if you write one of these books, you have to be okay with giving it to somebody, put your ego aside and make sure it's done well. Because if the original version would have gone out People would have still loved it. The husbandry was great, but there were definitely mistakes. And I'm not a snake taxonomist. Many people think I am. I am not. I play one on YouTube, but that's about the extent of that. But having a snake taxonomist review a book that's so systematics heavy, best thing ever. And then being okay with him telling me how to spell behavior because I spelled it the American way and he insisted on it being spelled the European way. You know, that stuff you just kind of laugh about and accept it. But making sure that all the taxonomy was correct, that was super important to me.
Oh, yeah.
So the vetting process is something I think that people have to be willing to let their work go through. And being okay with it. Like,
yeah, which I mean, like for me, if I put something, it's doing it to get, it's just like with the magazine, you know, it's like, it's doing it just to get the information out there. Like, it's not really about me or Phil or Billy or anything like that. You know, it's like, tear it apart if you need to, like, just as long as the information's correct, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think you get enough props, for the record there, sir, for putting out the magazine when you did. And now that it's kind of, and it's like active as needed state, is that, you know, you did herpetoculture a massive service. You did as well, Phil, helping with it. Like,
thank you.
I'm upset that I never got to the point where I could pump out an article, but now it's open. So who knows?
Never too late.
Never too late.
No, I have an article rolling in my head. It's more like an editorial. And I want to write something. It's going to be snotty as hell. And I don't want it to be snotty, which is herpetoculture a hobby or a discipline?
Oh yeah.
And I really want to explore that because I think it falls on a continuum.
Yeah.
But if we're going to be taken seriously, it better be a freaking discipline, because it's really hard to, it's literally in the word discipline.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a good way to fight opposition, is to just basically be like, look what I'm doing here.
Yeah. Dude, when Phil Leitz used that word on one episode like a year ago with him and Roy, I was like, oh my God, discipline. Like, it's a discipline. Like, it's like the emoji with the atom bomb head. Dude, that was it.
Yeah. When I went on their show, I talked about discipline. Like, I talked about it as well. Like, that's something that's a soapbox of mine. And every time I say, like, when people refer to it as the hobby, I feel like I'm being an arrogant. I'm up in my ivory tower with my little pinkies out. But I also, I live and breathe with the people, the wildlife biologists that make their eggs. Right. And I've literally had them say to me, well, I mean, it's just a hobby. And if that's the perspective, whether we like it or not, that you got to fight that. And there's super easy to fight it, because what a lot of people are doing, I would argue, goes so far beyond the term hobby.
Yeah. 1,000%.
You know, I think it's just, we're shooting ourselves in the foot and being very disingenuous, just being like, well, the hobby, you know, so end rant.
Awesome.
Because I can start talking now and go another 2 hours.
It's cool.
Which I don't want to do.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I want to know, after your last episode with Terry, there was it wasn't even touched upon. Like, it was mentioned and it was glanced over. What the hell is this? What do we got going on here? Is it coming up yet? It's being slow.
I've seen it's up there. I've seen that picture. Well,
the rear fang on the rhino?
Yes.
It's because they have a rear fang.
Bum.
Yeah.
What?
Rhino rat snakes are the anti-rat snake. That is one of the reasons why them being in the genus Gonosoma or Jonosoma or whatever you want to call it. And I can't remember their former genus. So
Rhynchophus.
There you go. Yeah, I got some issues there.
I think we all do.
Yeah. But no, that is absolutely an enlarged opistoglyphis.
I was feeding. This was
Yes.
like taken a couple weeks ago. Like I was feeding my adults, and I was watching her eat, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" And every time she opened up, I was like, "What the hell is that? What am I looking at?" And I took pictures. I was like,
"Yeah." Well, so
wow.
one of the crazy things about rat snakes is that rat snakes are always used as the anti-opistoglyphis colubrid group, because they don't even, like, our North American species don't even have a freaking Duvernois gland. Like, there's nothing. And I can't remember if they have one or not. There's a couple species that have enlarged back teeth to kind of work prey back, but it just seems like every time anybody, you have to kill the snake, and then you do the histology, and then you look, kind of like what they did with Komodo dragons back in the day, that you end up finding that there's glandular tissue where there should be a gland, and the next thing you know, boom. Oh, wow, look at this. There's a sort of kind of maybe venom gland there. So,
yeah, you guys just mentioned it with Terry, and it was very brief, like, oh, yeah, maybe this is a thing, and then just like, back
well,
to
I mean, I finally have to concede, and I don't like to, but I've now heard it twice, the story about the rhinos eating the bear and I.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And just so you know, if you look...
Oh,
the audio go out?
Yeah, we lost his audio. Say that one more time, Doc. You're... Nope, he's muted or something. Something unplugged.
Does it articulate? No, I don't believe it did. It was static.
And I don't know if it showed through, but Jason Hood's in the chat, and he says, "Great book, Doc." Yeah, we're not hearing him.
Well, now you're actually, it says you're muted.
Oh, yeah.
Now.
There we go. There it is.
Thanks, Jason. But no, I got rhinos again, because my rhinos ended up in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Nice.
They're doing great.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Did I ever tell you guys how much I love those things?
I think you have, maybe a couple times.
Couple times. Oh man. Now, what I always thought was too is that there is and I could be mistaken. Someone like Scott Eipers in the chat, he may know this, but there was a paper a long time ago. I can't remember what it was, and regrettably, I didn't save it. But there was someone doing the study on multiple minute salivary glands, much like Gila monsters have the venom glands in the lower jaw, and basically saying that to make the desired saliva cocktail, you had different glands producing different things, and could one of those be construed or deemed a venom gland despite not having a bona fide delivery system? And I think I don't know if rhinos was one of them, but like that strikes me as an animal that could possibly have multiple different quote unquote salivary ducts or glands. And one of those parts of the cocktail would be considered a venom gland or Duvernois or what have you.
I mean, it's totally possible.
Yeah.
The reality of this is that there's well over 2,500 species of snakes.
Yeah.
And like, there's so much crap we don't know.
Yeah.
And we won't know it for quite some time. So I would not be the slightest bit surprised if there's some kind of peptide in there. I mean, I can't do chemistry to save my life, but there's some pretty easy tests that we can do here at the school just to be like, is there a protein in the spit?
Right.
Yeah.
And if you have a protein makes an enzyme. And now I have rhinos. So I could see grabbing a pipette one day, slurping some up.
Well,
we did that, and then just like, is there anything in there? But then again, most saliva has some kind of enzyme in it. So does that mean it's a venomous thing, or is it just a,
Yeah.
But
once again, we did that with drawn.
Yeah. We did that with the falsies when I first got them. And we did a test that showed like different. So when you have proteins all weigh a little bit more or less than each other because you're adding more amino acids to it. So more complex protein weighs more, a less complex protein weighs less. And so you can kind of do some fancy chemistry and deduce how many proteins are in there based off of the weights of the molecules. And just for funsies, the Molect peeps were like, hey, we need to do a protein assay. Do you have anything? And I was like, do I? Come down here, child, with your pipette. And we like rang foot, false water cobra, and they're like shoving the pipette up on its fang, and I'm massaging where the Duvernoy's gland would be. And that test was amazing because we got like, I mean, it was like immediate fluorescence.
Wow.
So I've thought about it for 4 years. We did it 4 years ago. And for 4 freaking years, every time I see a kid with a pipette, I go back to that place.
Nice.
Who knows? Awesome. Maybe we can do it for the rhinos here.
I'm back, pipette boy.
There you go.
They have graduated, and they are now in med school.
Nice.
So
it's like I look at that, that picture and watching them that day, and it just makes me wonder, like, for rhinos in particular, like what does that, where would that serve them? And it's like, is it fish when they're little? Is it birds? Is it, lizards? Like what?
Yeah.
Natural history wise, like what would call for that in that species?
The photo right there, it's hanging upside down for crying out loud,
I think it's all the above.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the very least, there might not be any proteins or any kind of venom, and it could just simply be, this is what I use to grab onto a lizard when it's trying to get the hell out of my mouth.
Yeah.
As I'm slurping it down because I can't constrict and kill it because it's a lizard.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I've seen, dude, I've got one of the smaller, I have a small male, and when he grabs, he wraps it. I don't have really any of the other ones. They don't really grab and wrap it, but that male in particular, he squeezes the ever loving shit out of it. But then watching the neonates grab those rosies in the water bowl was really interesting too. I watched them do that one day, and the speed at which they grab those and eat them is insane. Like that fish is in the water 1 second and down its gullet, within 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really surprising because you would think that they would have a very hard time grabbing those things and eating them, but they no effort like whatsoever. It's wild.
Very cool.
I tried to film it, but every time I have some in there, like they don't do anything, and then when I leave the room and come back 20 minutes later, they're all gone. So it's
yeah.
If I'm watching, it's not going to happen. If I'm not in the room, they will.
Yeah. And Scott says that the paper that I was most likely talking about with the dissection of salivary glands was from Fry et al. In 2008. If anyone wants to Google that. Yeah.
It's a Fry paper.
Yeah. He loves that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, boys, we're at the 2-hour mark. Is there anything we want to touch base on? No?
I don't think so.
Well, I'll hold the book up one more time. Selfless plug. The Natural History and Captive Care of False Water Cobras, Barren Racers, Musaranas, and Other Xenodontine Snakes by Zachary Loughman, PhD.
Thank you, Phil.
I do feel the need to say one thing. Yes.
One thing. I had a couple people bust my balls on the incredibly long title. According to Russ, it is important to put as many keywords in this title as possible because it's such a niche book that if we don't put false water cobras or Barron's racers or musaranas or snake or xenodontine, when you do a search for it, you're just not going to find it.
All about that SEO, man.
You got it.
Go.
That's
so
it.
For those wondering why the book has a title that is almost maybe in excess of 10 words, that is why.
I also feel like, on a side note, maybe this is just me, so many people know what those animals are, but if you put the book that just said Dipsadidae, no one would know. Or most people would not, but they know what those animals are for sure. So
because Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince or the Prisoner of Azkaban is completely acceptable.
Yes. There you go.
I met Russ at Daytona, and I talked to him briefly. I thought that was pretty cool. He's a pretty nice guy to chat with briefly. So.
No. And I guess the only other thing that I would like to talk about, and I might have even talked about it, but I'm burnt because this was my first day back after a week, and I got hit with a lot of problems that weren't problems and problems that were problems, and I had to deduce which pile they fell into.
Yep.
Yes, triage. That's correct. We're doing this out of like Russ's house. This is not being done with Amazon.
Yeah.
This is truly a passion project. If you have not gotten your book and you ordered one, there's about 20 people. We had a lot of people buy the book and then they didn't give us an address.
Nice.
So we can't ship the book out. But then you bought it and we couldn't get a hold of you.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to get some messages like, hey, where the hell's my book? Which is valid.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this and you fall in that camp and you're being nice and you're not bugging me, bug me. Because as soon as we get your name and your address, we ship the book out.
Yeah.
Russ and I are both home now for a while, so we can totally get them out. So just please let me know. And
for people that
we'll go from
didn't,
there.
And for people that didn't know the book even existed, which I think is crazy because everyone here loves you, but
thanks.
What's the easiest way for them to purchase said book if they haven't got
it?
The
Is
copy
super
yet?
simple. As long as you have access to social media, you simply message me. I can tell you. I tell everybody this. There are 3 messages that hit me during the course of my day that bring a ray of sunshine to my life. One is anything to deal with snakes. One is anything to do with crayfish. And then that's the people that are interested in the book. Because now that I'm an administrator, I have to deal with people. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So, so I'll drop everything in the middle of a meeting and be like, well, I have to take this call. And it's, someone sent me a picture of a ringneck snake. And I'm like, that's a ringneck snake.
Nice.
It's not going to hurt you. But I normally message people. I am horrible at typing on a phone. My right thumb does not bend properly. Maybe that's too much information, but I cannot type on a freaking phone. So sometimes I wait until I'm back at my computer and I can just crank it out, faster. But you will certainly get a message within 24 hours. And if there's people listening, like Scott, if you're listening, we can get one to Australia. I asked Russ. We've sent a bunch to Europe. Ironically, it's apparently a little easier for us to get them to Europe than it is to get them to Canada, which I don't quite understand. But
it's bizarre.
It's a thing. And I believe we finally got some down to the people in South America, I was really pumped about that.
That's cool.
Because they were just amazing to work with. So
yeah.
So we can get it pretty much anywhere. The only place that Russ is having problems getting it out to so far is South Africa, of all places. So we're still working on that one. But if you're in the States, it's easy. And then I have a handful of copies that I am sending. Like I've had them since Tinley. I just haven't held still since Tinley. So I have to I'm mailing them out actually, I think tomorrow. Because I booked an hour and a half just to get them out the door. So
excellent.
But yeah, no, now is a good time to do it because Russ and I are down. We're not going anywhere for a month. So it should be you order it as long as we have your address, we ship it right out maybe even that day. I can't speak for us, but within 48 hours, I think it's safe.
Awesome.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yes. And yeah, I just want to thank you both for having me on. I think this is my first time on this one. I've been on THP a handful of times.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, pleasure's all mine. Very humbled. And you two are doing the Lord's work because I love your podcast. So there you go.
You're the inspiration, Bubba.
Oh, okay. I think you're going a little too far there.
Yeah, you are.
But
you are.
Anyway.
This episode was brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram. Go find the giveaway they are currently doing. Sign up for it, enter, and then, hey, give them a follow. Use code THN at checkout if you're buying yourself a rack or a cage. They have a new heat panel that is made in Italy now available. I think what's the name of that brand? I want to say it was something different. Like it recently changed. It was called one thing and now it's called something else.
Okay.
But they look nice. They're like all metal construction. They look legit. So Go check those out. FullVSapparel.com, Full Apparel on Facebook and Instagram. Also use the code THN at checkout. Get 15% off your order for listeners and viewers like you. Got some orders going out in the morning. Got some stuff I got to print tomorrow to send out. What's today? Monday. Send out Wednesday. And order some shirts. Puget Sound Pythons. Check them out. Follow them on Morph Market. Stay in the loop with what they got going on. Good people. We love them. And if you're in the Pacific Northwest, they vend a handful of shows up that way. You can't miss their table because it's the blue and like turquoise. I don't even know what color exactly you'd call it. To me, that's turquoise.
Seafoam. It's seafoam.
That's not seafoam. Seafoam is way more green than that. But regardless, you can't miss them. And then we'll be back for THP on Thursday. So we appreciate everybody. We'll see you later.
Bye.